Today, in the driver's seat, we have the former mayor of Mornington and independent candidate for the electorate of Flinders, Despi O'Connor.
Hey, Daniel.
How you doing, Despi?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited.
That's good. It's a beautiful place, and we can see that through the window here. Whereabouts are we?
We're on Wonga, which has been called Arthur's Seat by our colonisers, and we're looking out over Port Phillip Bay.
Actually, the colours kind of look like your campaign colours, don't they?
They do, because that's kind of where I've got them from. So,
oh, is it?
Yeah, so the watercolour and the eucalypts and the trees, the colours in this place have kind of made up my colour.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, but I feel like the electric car feels a little bit like a Dodgem car.
Yeah.
That was my first reaction when I first got into one.
Dodgem cars are electric cars, actually.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. There's a few groups down here that are pretty keen to see Flinders or this area develop its own renewable energy and become a bit more self-reliant.
Yeah, so we're actually driving right now towards the township of Flinders, and they actually want to be a community that hits net zero by 2030. I'm sure that they're going to get there, but is it going to be difficult or easy for them? I hope with this next election it'll actually be easier for them to reach that goal.
And what are some of the problems at the moment? I mean, there's the will is there. The people want to do it.
The people want to do it. The community will is there.
The community will is
there.
But
the political will isn't really there. There's actually 3 groups across the peninsula who want to do a community energy project. And they've been talking about it for a while now, but there just seems to be lots of layers of bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see this level of community action, 3 groups in one municipality.
Yeah, wow.
To me, that says something. That says people want to change.
Yeah.
And I think it's time. It's time for that change. But we need to make sure that vulnerable people in our community are taken along with us as well and looked after. Lots of people say that the Mornington Peninsula is a rich place, it's a playground. I've heard that word so many times. We have such disparity between people who, have and people who don't have. In my time as mayor, I saw the richness of this place, but I also saw the poverty. It's really sad. There was just under 100 odd people who were being looked after because they were homeless prior to the pandemic. Within a year, it was up to about 175, and now we're around about the 400 mark. That's just the people that our community support centres know of. It may not be the real figure, because homelessness is not just sleeping rough. It's sleeping on couches, it's sharing homes, and there's lots of women sleeping in cars down here with their children. We've got one of the highest levels of domestic violence in Victoria. And having learnt that it was that bad in my year as mayor and, seeing vulnerable people slip through the gaps. Another one of the reasons I wanted to step up. Climate justice and social justice kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
We can look after people and at the same time look after our planet, and we can't do them separately. We just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way of doing it separately. I agree 100%. COVID's obviously been incredibly tough for so many people, but one of the positives to come out of it is that it has shown us that we can support people and that the government has the capacity to do that. We know that for the last, almost 20 years, the New Start payment has been $278 or something like that for a very, very long time, which is below the poverty line, right? And the argument was always made, we can't afford to increase it, right? And then when COVID came, bang, all of a sudden we could miraculously just fund these huge
But it wasn't just
programs.
to our vulnerable people, it was to everybody.
Yeah.
Mornington Peninsula was one of the highest take-up areas in Victoria. There's a lot of work to do. There's definitely a lot of work to do.
We've seen the federal government announce that 70,000 tonnes of coal is going to be sent to the Ukraine. On the surface, it's kind of like, oh, okay, we're doing something for Ukraine. Well, we could just be sending them money and letting them decide how they want to spend it. We're taking public funds and directing it into the coal industry. But not only that, it's going to Whitehaven Coal, a Liberal Party donor, and it gets better. It gets better. The chairman,
making me sad.
the chairman of Whitehaven Coal is Mark Vaile. He was the leader of the National Party, and he was actually a Deputy Prime Minister of Australia.
Yeah.
And somehow Whitehaven Coal is getting an order from the Australian government of our money to buy 70,000 tonnes of coal.
There's so many issues there. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's really,
Not technically supposed to call it corruption if it's legal or whatever, but come on, this is outright corruption and influence of the fossil fuel industry over public policy here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some of that streams back into election campaigns, which makes it difficult for people who are trying to represent their community and get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Because how do we get a seat at the table when the amount of money that we have to use for an election campaign is so much less? There's so much divide between the parties and, you know, your small independents like me.
Yeah, and I guess independents like yourself emerge from these community groups. The communities are, you know, your mums and dads, your families that are chipping in $5-10 here and there to try to support your campaign, and you're having to compete with this huge corporate money that's flowing into major parties.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the lowest donation I've got is $6.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
A $6 donation.
That's so good.
That's actually someone who cares enough to put some money into something that could make a difference, and that's what they have.
Yeah.
$6.
And it's not even $5. It's like, I'm going to go 6.
I know.
That's adorable, actually.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? We've got lots of tens.
Yeah.
Lots of tens, which just shows that people want to see a change.
Yeah.
We've set up a bulk buy system. Community members can actually purchase electric ovens, reverse cycle heating,
stovetops.
So we're helping our community do this. We're not just saying you're on your own. Here's a way to get on the electric
bandwagon
and electrify your home. And our local government's doing that. That's not from anywhere else.
Yeah, climate stuff, the energy stuff, it's being led bottom up. And the last ones to the move are the federal government. Actually went for a drive with Saul Griffith, who has written the book, The Big Switch. I think it's incredibly exciting what we're just coming into now, electrifying everything. He said that like gas stovetops are the leading cause of respiratory illness in the US. When someone goes to a GP with respiratory issues, the first thing a GP will ask them is, do you have a gas stove in your house? Pets who live in houses with gas stoves die younger than pets that don't, right? For a community with 1,000 households, they could save like $3 million a year. That's $3 million that isn't going to coal, oil and gas companies. Saul says that's $3 million that you've got to put into your community.
The council has led this here so well. The council's organisation is carbon neutral already. That says we're doing this to the community. It's little policy things. So every time the council has a new build, they install a charger. So almost the whole fleet is electric. And the community is driving this. You know, even with the citizen panel that we had last year, you know, we had interviews and surveys from over 3,000 people, and 40 people sat down with all that information and pulled together a vision. You know, climate is at the heart of it. And it's not just climate, it's back to that social justice and climate justice together. So our First Nations people working together, collaborative, looking after each other. You know, where did all that stuff go? It's in our communities. It's never left our communities, but somewhere along the lines in our governments, it's left that. The main street is closed in Mornington over summer, has been for the last 2 years, and we've put some infrastructure in, pops up and down to allow us to close it for special occasions as well. It was an incredible space with no cars. You know, you didn't have the smell of petrol. 2 types of pollution, fuel and noise gone, like just like that. Those bollards come up, everything is calmer. It was just incredible.
We've become so numb by the sound and the smell, we don't even notice it anymore, right?
Until it goes away.
Until it's gone. And we talked about this earlier with COVID, how It stopped all the traffic, and all of a sudden the air got really clean. You could smell the difference in the air. You could hear how peaceful the streets were. You could hear the birds singing in like the community because they weren't being drowned out by the internal combustion engine vehicle. If you imagine a really polluted pond and there's a fish that's living in that polluted pond and it's lived in that polluted pond its whole life, it feels miserable, but it doesn't know any different. So it just thinks that's how life is, right? And then you take that fish out and you put it into a clean pond and the fish goes, oh my God, this is awesome. I feel fantastic. That's our cities right now. Last night I was in the CBD of Melbourne. I found it disgusting, to be honest. Like the exhaust fumes, the noise, it was so stressful. Crossing the roads
really stressful,
and everything.
I know a lot of the community are looking forward to seeing, our main street in Mornington closed at different times and for perhaps longer periods of time. We know from research that when people are on their feet and are moving through shopping precincts, that more money is spent. If you target your most vulnerable user, which is your walker, everything else is fantastic.
If you want to look at like areas that have done this really well, again, let's look at Amsterdam. 70% of people are cycling, and anyone who's been to Amsterdam knows that it's one of the most economically dynamic places on the planet, right? There's so much going on there, so many bars and cafes and restaurants, and there's so much economic activity there, and it's all from people who are riding their pushies around.